Welcome to the 10 podcast. This is the sub-series Tech Culture, brought to you in collaboration with the BetterCulture team. I'm Shauna Dorsey with the Nebraska Tech Collaborative and Intern Any powered by Exarban. And today I'm here with
Kim Hoogeveen, owner of BetterCulture.
Awesome. So I know we are repeating this, but someone might just jump in on Tenet 12 and not have heard this before. So an overview of BetterCulture and then also the 20 tenets.
I can do that, and I'll try to make it quick for you. With BetterCulture, we're really on a mission to help make the world a better place to work. That's simple. It's an audacious goal, but we do that in many ways, training leaders, doing culture surveys. For about the first 6 years of BetterCulture, we really focused on leadership training. And then about 4 years ago, Shauna, we made a decision, or we recognized that there was the other side of the coin that we hadn't been really addressing. That other side of the coin was, well, if you have the right leadership philosophy coming down, what is it that every staff member could do to help protect and build their own culture? What could we do to sort of have a culture development coming up as well as leadership coming down? So we set about working with a number of owners, CEOs, HR folks, supervisors, brought them in small groups and asked several questions, but probably the core one was, beyond technical skills, can you describe the characteristics that would be an employee that you would fight to keep? What do you really value in terms of attitudes and behaviors of your employees? And of course, we got a lot of information, but we started doing sort of an informal factor analysis on all of those things. And we built these 20 characteristics. We call them 20 tenets of culture. And it started as an effort to really develop what employees could do to build and protect a great culture. The bonus we got when we got done is we also realized these are 20 attitudes and characteristics of people that tend to find terrific success in life and in their career. So sometimes it'll slip up with me. It's called the 20 tenets of culture, but they're actually, in my mind, also 20 tenets of success.
And a quality life. Life well lived.
Exactly. The other nice thing is it really doesn't, if they go across industry.
Yes.
It doesn't really make any difference if we're in a tire shop or a bank or a law firm or a cattle ranch. These are attitudes and behaviors that end up with people who are respected and highly valued within any peer group or company.
Love it. Okay, so today's tenet is Tenet 12, which is?
Kind. Be kind.
Okay.
I think of all 20, this is the one that probably strikes people with like, well, duh. But it was interesting as we talked with these owners and supervisors about how much they value employees that are actually genuinely kind and compassionate toward their colleagues. And just how much those individuals tended to be admired and respected, regardless of their formal position in the organization. And so this is one that we thought about whether to put in or not because it sounded so obvious.
Sure.
But just because something's obvious doesn't mean it's not really important. And so it kept coming back up in session after session. We finally realized it needs to be in here.
So I'm being I don't know what I'm being the word. That's okay. So there's a difference between nice and kind. And so can you tell us about what do you mean by kindness? Like, how is this expressed?
That's a great question. In my mind, not saying this is actually accurate, just in my mind, it's such an interesting question. No one's ever asked me that before. I see nice as a bit more of a surface attitude or behavior. I see kindness as something a little deeper, a little bit more genuine. I see it adjacent to compassion.
Okay, yeah.
And what we have found is that people that are recognized or seen as being really kind, it isn't because of one gesture of generosity, some grand thing they did. It tends to be an accumulation of small, exceptionally thoughtful things. They seem to have an ability to not only recognize what that other person or colleague might need at the time, but they actually make an effort to address that need. And so for me, it's it's not something that you put on in one social setting and then you take it off in another.
Yeah.
It sort of sticks with them. They're just flat out, they have a good heart. They're just genuinely kind to the people they interact with.
Okay. So can you give us a couple of examples? I'm thinking of several people I know who have this, I think, quality.
Interesting. Can you, what do you think of those people in general? Can you think of one, and what do you think of them?
I think it's the small things that they do. They're small and thoughtful and considerate. Like, yeah, I think that they're very considerate individuals, and I enjoy working with them, which is a bonus.
You know, one of the things that I find is absolutely true. I've never had anybody that I can remember come up to me and say, Kim, I just need some kindness today.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to come up and ask for that. But that doesn't mean that I don't really remember those people who went out of their way to be kind and helpful and compassionate at times I needed it most.
Right.
I think everyone knows this quote, like it's brilliant from me, but Maya Angelou saying that you remember how people made you feel. And I think that's with kind people. I remember how they made me feel.
Right.
And sometimes in my language, I call it a searing formative moment. When you're at a particularly difficult time in life, we all hit bumps at some point, you remember who shows up when you needed them the most. And a lot of times, if you look back on that, it's because they had just a kind heart.
Yeah.
They recognized that I think he could use a little help right now. And maybe it's just listening.
Yep.
Most kind people I find tend to listen sometimes more than they are talkers. And so that seems to all wrap together for me.
Okay. So if I'm an individual who wants to become more kind, what are some things I can do?
Well, I guess it starts by looking at yourself a little bit and making a bit of I think it's helpful to reflect on how do you really want to be viewed by others. I don't think this is something that everybody has the ability to just turn on.
Yeah.
I would grant you that. But I do think with a little reflection on how you want to be viewed by others, it's always been helpful for me. I've personalized a lot when I'm in a leadership role or in a work setting. And even though I may not know that person this well, if I can personalize it to someone I do, if that was my sister, if that was my son or daughter, what would I want someone to do for them now? And when you do that, I think for me at least, it becomes more clear. The other thing that I think it helps you in this regard is if you'll stop telling people how busy you are.
Yeah.
I find it doesn't really take a lot of time to go from being fairly cold to doing something that someone would genuinely appreciate when they need it the most. And when you look back on where the hours in your day really went, I work with a lot of people that supposedly their assistants tell me they're really scheduled tightly. I've never had a day in my life when I didn't have 5 minutes if it was important to someone else.
Yep.
Never. So I'm a little skeptical of those who think they don't have time. I think it's a lousy excuse.
Yep.
So it may be take a little look at how you are spending your time. One last thing.
Yes.
I know you, one last thing.
No, good.
I would encourage people to recognize that sometimes they're uncomfortable with going out of their normal comfort zone to say or do something that might be a little touchy-feely. I think we underestimate the power of the written word. And even if it's in that email format, taking the time to drop that note and extend yourself that if I can be helpful, I hope you'll let me know. I think can be a way for those of us that maybe aren't as extroverted as others to still make sure that other person knows that I did see that today. And I would sure be pleased if I could have a chance to be helpful.
That's great. And for the person receiving it, I'm sure that makes them feel valued, even if they don't ever reach out.
Yes, absolutely. And it's sometimes less awkward than having eyeball to eyeball conversation, and gives them a little time to think and maybe drop the note back, if you would have time for lunch this week, I would love it. So I think that's sometimes underutilized.
Okay, this is good. And so one final question on this one. If I'm a person who works with a really kind person, how can I show appreciation for them?
What a terrific question. All of these things, I think if we spend more time celebrating, thanking, recognizing, that helps other people also see that there's actually a benefit to this, because that's how you get respect and admiration. So celebrating the kind people around us,
Yeah.
I think is a really terrific idea. In fact, that goes for all of the 20 tenets.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again. So
Thank
good.
you.